All right, good morning. We're live on the air. Today is Sunday, February 24th, 2019. Welcome to the Sweet Talk. I am your host, Kim Matina. I am a Google certified trainer and a gold product expert in the Google for Education Jamboard and CS First Help Forum. I am so thankful to have on the show today Dr. James McAfee from Sacramento, California. He brings a different perspective onto the Sweet Talk today because he is a physical therapist and he's a Google certified level 2 educator. And he's going to talk about how he designed a self-leadership model for the business world and for education when he was a student in grad school. So thank you for being on, Dr. James McAfee.
No problem, Kim. Great to be here. I'm happy to join you this morning.
So it's great to have a different perspective of how G Suite can be used in the business world and for the medical profession, and how you found yourself getting involved in all of the G Suite. So why don't you give us a little background on how you started using G Suite and why you felt that it was a great tool to track leadership goals and milestones.
Sure. Yeah. I'd love to kind of dive into that. I like you said, am a physical therapist. So I'm not a teacher. So I think I differ from a lot of your audience in that regard. But I think you guys are doing a lot of great things with these tools. So yeah, I'm a physical therapist. For those of you that don't know, physical therapists help people with movement dysfunction. So all sorts of people, whether that's somebody in a hospital after a heart transplant or somebody after an ankle or a knee sprain that's trying to get back to their sport, somebody that's working a desk job, somebody that wants to stay active on the weekends, fighting some aches and pains. We help people across the lifespan with a variety of interventions, manual therapy, exercise, but a key portion of that is patient education. We really like to empower our patients, teach them about their movement, create an environment so that their body can learn and adapt and engage with their environment. So education is a key piece, I think, to our puzzle. And going off of that, I think, I bring a lot of this experience from a student perspective. So when I started using Google tools, it was more in college and in our grad school program where, I've sort of witnessed technology inch its way into the classroom, but for me, it wasn't really utilized until probably college. For me, Drive became a very impressive resource for collaboration and group projects and things like that. But I really found myself growing very religious about it in my personal use. Just having all of my personal information and documents and notes and things really stored under this very clean umbrella, permanent umbrella of Google Drive and specifically Sheets. But yeah, I kind of got started there, and I really saw what y'all are doing in the teacher world, integrating these into very workable and actionable tools to improve outcomes, whatever those outcomes are. And for me, my outcomes are to be the best physical therapist I can, to get patients better. How do I use this to accomplish that goal? And I think Google Drive is a great place to at least improve accessibility and personal use of data, being able to pick something out and implement it and then improve on it for next time. I found all those to be incredibly useful. So I went through the certified educator program, and no plans to get back into the classroom, but I do think I'm educating people in clinic all day, and I really love pushing this kind of template structure out into the public as well.
I really like that you have a different perspective on it because you're taking what you used as a student and you're pushing it out in your workforce, and you're touching people with different workflow in even your patients and in your office. So you're collaborating with people that aren't even aware that Google could do all these things, and you're probably making things a lot more efficient, and you're able to see data in real time because everything is updated, immediately. And patients don't have to, all they have to do is log in and they have access to their their spreadsheet or their data, and then they can log it, and then you can go in and see it, whenever you need to go in. And it's just a great piece of collaboration, and it's just not for education. It's could be applied to anything. Again, like we were talking before the show started, in the education aspect of it, I would track students' growth using spreadsheets. So what I did was, and teachers, we use Google Classroom. So I'm not sure if you use Google Classroom in grad school or not, but I created a template to track student growth for a unit or for a lesson. And I had all of my learning goals in the spreadsheet. And then I had my rubric as another tab in the spreadsheet. And students had to rate themselves prior to the lesson and at the end of the lesson. And even if I wanted to, I can track in the middle also, but I usually it was in the beginning and the end. And the students were able to see their personal growth throughout the lesson or the unit, and they can see, okay, I improved this much, or I was able to learn this much, and or I need to go back and reteach that. And I would go in and I would the students shared the spreadsheet with me. I shared the spreadsheet with the students, through Google Classroom, and I always had access to the spreadsheet. So I was able to go in daily and see, what they were logging. And it's just another great piece to collaborate on and to get real life data accessible right there. So I'm glad to see that you're applying what you've done in your workflow at work through the medical profession, because it's you moving forward, little steps at a time, and that's what makes the difference. And it can definitely help somebody. So I want to really go over like what you created, your templates, because I was looking at them, and I'll tell you what, a lot of them, they are really they're really super helpful. I like the exercise ones that track
Yeah, yeah.
your heart rate and everything. But why don't you show, what you did, because it was really um, it's really a good idea, and I like that, because everybody likes to see progress. Everybody likes to have some type of self goal, and when you meet that goal, you feel like accomplished. So I think tracking everything in a spreadsheet is a great tool to be able to do that.
Yeah, I totally hear you, and you chimed on a lot of really great things, and how that resonates in my world is empowering a patient to log on to their dashboard and put in maybe their daily exercise statistics, how they felt, how many minutes, maybe how many hours of sleep they got. For me, I have the unique chance to get somebody's whole picture and to hopefully translate that into something meaningful to them, and then helping them make the moves toward the right direction. So, is there anything you wanted to start with? Anything in particular? Do you want to go over one of the exercise ones?
Yeah, try that one.
Sure. Okay. So let's pass on the screen. Um, so we're looking at at the top here, we see an exercise intensity calculator. This is based off the American Heart Association resource that recommends 150 minutes per week of moderate exercise for adults, more along like 300 minutes for children. But what we're seeing here is a basic intensity calculator for how much you should be exercising, specifically how intense. Since we know we need to get 150 minutes more or less of that moderate exercise. So I wrote down a little key here as far as the moderate intensity tends to be 50% to 70% of your heart rate max can be considered, your heart rate zone. So what I did here is basically allow you to go in and choose an age. It'll give you an estimated heart rate max. There are two ways to do that. It's either 220 minus your age or 208 minus 0.7 times your age. So what you can do is pick the one that you want. You could either pick one or pick both and just use an average of these two. And then that estimated heart rate max is going to be used for the calculations below. I have been used. So I chose the 220 minus your age. That tends to be the one that's most clarified, and that's just sending a message like this is how many times in a minute that your heart can beat in it when it's working maximally. So in this case, it's 170. That's sort of your 100% effort, what your heart's going to be beating at. You don't want to get there during exercise. You want to get 50% of that to 70% of that, which in this case is 85 to 119. And then this is a formula we sometimes use down below that basically just takes your heart rate reserve. So it takes your max heart rate, which is 170, minus your resting heart rate, which in this case you could put it in as 60. And that number represents your reserve, the difference between your resting and your maximum. And then you multiply that by the exercise intensity that you're trying to achieve, which is different than the above recommendations for moderate intensity, but it could be similar. And then it gives you two more numbers here to aim between. So it's just a way to kind of punch in your information there and learn something about how much you should be exercising. I had a question the other day, like, I get scared when my heart beats very fast. And I said, we need that heart to kick in. We need to be pushing ourselves to a certain level, but we need to know how to measure it. And just, reaching down and measuring the pulse is a great way to do that.
I really like that, James. I really, I'm looking at the calculator and I'm just like, I can't believe that you designed this because like the machine, like, okay, so I do cardio at the gym and I do the Stairmaster. So on the Stairmaster, um, I don't have like a, a chart that shows my target heart rate or whatever I'm trying to do. It's just all the LED lights. So this can actually I can do this. I can access this off my phone, right? And type in my, take my pulse and type in my information on a chart
Yeah,
and I can actually see what my max heart rate is and my target heart rate zone and all that
sure.
while I'm cooling down or whatnot, right?
Yeah, and I think it's also like a snapshot. So this may not change. This will only change year to year with your age. So you could log on here one time. Maybe you just remember this window. I need to be working in this 80 to 120 range. When I get above 120, I'm going to be in that vigorous zone. Maybe that's the information that you take from it. And then when you're at the gym, you could kind of grip onto those handles sometimes that treadmills have, and that'll just spit out the LED number or the pulse rate. But yeah, I really love that you see an actionable use to this.
I do. And then so now how can I track my information in here? So like if I do the Stairmaster, 5 times a week, I can track my the time that I did, the level, whatever, the calories, the steps, and like in your other spreadsheets that you created, you have some type of like um, data table that you can enter in information that you can actually track. So, like me, what I would do is I would get off the Stairmaster, track my information in the sheet right on my phone, and I have it all done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, so this is just a calculator. This is just more of a reference. So, I know you have other templates that you've created that will allow people to track their goals, and that's
Sure.
something that I'd like you to share as well because that tracker could be used in any type of model. It's not just for medical or the business world or educational world. It can be for anything, and that's what I think is nice about it is that it can be customizable to whatever your personal goals are, or in your job, or anything in your life.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I'm gonna pull over a new uh spreadsheet here. So I'm a runner. I use running as my primary. I'm not gonna bore you with that graph. We can go back to those are actually my marathon times. So I track like every mile of the 4 marathons that I've done, and I kind of put that into a chart, and I've seen like how the average looks, how my first time compares to my last time. things like that, and then just graphing it over time, 0 to 26 miles. But what I hear from you is a desire to like punch that number in and to track it. And what I've built here, and I'll show you one after this as well, is like basically a way that you can track your runs, and your pace and your minutes. And perhaps here you could just type in something like heart rate. Maybe you do during exercise, and then you could also do 10 minutes after, because a lot of what we're looking at measurement wise is like how well is your body able to come down from a top heart rate like that. So your workflow could be, potentially like, so we went on a run this morning. These two actually are, what I do is I use this program called If This Then That, and it logs to my Strava. Strava is an app that you can just hit go. It'll track your running speed and your distance through a GPS program, and that pulls over to a different sheet that I just copy these numbers in: a date, a meter, and a second, and then I have those calculate to a mile pace, minutes, and mile per hour. But I'm more or less interested in these two numbers here. So yeah, I mean, if I ran like a 5K on that date, and I ran that 5K, and I'm not even sure how many seconds that would be, but let's say 2,500. And then these could obviously pull down. And I'm thinking why that may not be the case here. Oh, it's because these are not active yet. Well, regardless, this is sort of what you'd be looking at. This is not a tool that I use too frequently, but we have kind of our numbers here that you can kind of punch in and look. My heart rate during the exercise, when I felt like I was working the hardest, was 160. Maybe you have a third column here that's your percent max, right? You can kind of type that in and have that calculate be living. And then heart rate 10 minutes after exercise, maybe it jumped down to 100, something like that.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, obviously that spreadsheet is customized for you and your running data. But for, if you're doing physical therapy on a patient that needs assistance with, something, I don't know, like with walk-in or whatnot, you can create a spreadsheet and track specific data just for that patient. So it's customizable for that specific need.
Sure.
Whether it's, building back the legs or, the arms or the shoulders, whatever you're working on, and then you can also track maybe weight if they're doing weights. I really like this. This is a really great way of manipulating Google Sheets and tracking data and keeping track of milestones for patients. Again, it could also be applied for students as well, and even teachers. So, teachers, we can reflect on our learning style, and we can always improve in what we're doing in the classroom as well. So, if you have a personal goal for teachers, you can track it, and, you can use this as a tool to improve, your instruction to your students in the classroom. I really like this a lot, James. I think you did a really great job using spreadsheets in your medical profession. I really think it gives the patients the power to track their data and then not have to rely on their physical therapist to tell them. Like, they can actually go in and see the information live whenever they want.
Sure. Yeah, and that's the beauty of the world we're living in. Just a quick note, I did find out why that wasn't pulling over, and it's because it was all based on this C column, where if that was full, it pulls through the data. So I was able to kind of get that to work. But I love how you really chimed in on just making data-driven decisions, because with health, all of our decisions should be data-driven to a certain extent. If we are heading the way that we're going, we don't know how much things cost as far as, a visit to the doctor or specialist. We don't really know where the money goes. If there's one thing we want to track, it's just the health of our current system. How well is our engine running? Because it should be built for 90 plus years, but we know that things obviously do happen. How do I set myself up for success in the future? The last thing I'll kind of point you in the right direction to is like an exercise periodization. Periodization just means like, how do I structure, let's just say like a 3-month exercise program. This is not something I've really released to anybody. I was sort of playing around with this more than anything with the formulas, but let's say this is a starting date at 12/20, so last December, choosing like a 3-month program. And what I could do here is sort of structure a program for a potential patient. How I see like a teacher interpreting this is like, maybe these are units, maybe these are lesson plans. Maybe on Monday we're doing, our lab, or, something like that. But we're kind of creating these over that are, when this is a Tuesday date, we're going to do a long run. When this is a Wednesday, we're lifting. You can kind of add, maybe we're doing Pilates or something, and then Pilates will kind of pull through on a Friday, for instance. But I could change the length of these phases. So instead of 3 weeks, maybe I do 2, and then it does kind of change color, I think, if I set it up right. So we have a 4-week second unit based on that starting date. So this is something too where it's like, it really depends. You want to make it scalable to the individual. When do you start? How long do you want this to be? Again, this would be the progress would have been made. So if I, this progress bar reflects the distance between this date and this date, or I guess this date in between the other two. But yeah, I mean, this is just something I was playing around with. Today's date is highlighted in yellow. There are some pretty gnarly formulas in here, but my goal is to create something like this so that you really only have to look at these columns. Like this is like, how'd you feel? It's like, okay, maybe a self-reported scale of like, how were you doing on a scale of 0 to 10? Did you feel like you did awesomely? Okay, maybe it's a 9. Got to play around with these different columns and measurements here.
So this template is actually interesting because okay, so I'm gonna chime in on the educational part of it. So it can be used as a pacing guide for teachers who teach, the same subject in school. So administration can have some type of, let's just say this type of template, and share it with, the 7th grade teachers or the 8th grade teachers who teach social studies or English or math or science. And, it can be a guide, and each teacher in that subject area can put in for that week where they are, and it looks like it would just automatically calculate what you're supposed to be doing or what you're really doing. And it's another tracking tool or another tracking template that may be helpful with pacing. So I think that this template here can be very helpful, because then, like administrators can just go in and see, okay, where is this person at right now on the pacing guide? They're supposed to be teaching chemistry now, and then they're not. So they can actually see where they are instead of, maybe emailing them and finding out exactly where they are. This is all live data. So if teachers put this in every week, like they do with their lesson plan, then the administrators can see exactly where they are on the pacing guide. To me, this would be more of a quick reference. If you really want to go in and see where a teacher is, you can look at this. Maybe this can turn into some type of graph so that the administrators can see it quickly. Because sometimes lesson plans, can be lengthy, and if they're looking for something quick, this would be the answer. That's my opinion. But I'm not an administrator either. But I was just thinking, as a pacing guide, I think it would be a great reference, even for my colleagues. Like if I'm teaching 7th grade math, with 4 other math teachers, and I want to see where they're at, what topic they're teaching, maybe they're ahead of me or maybe they're behind me. At least this kind of gives me, an overview of what my colleagues are teaching and where they're at as well. So I think it definitely is practical. it definitely can be used in the educational part. It's just a matter of getting people on board, and that's a challenge with anything. I would assume that you would have it as well with patients, you know, getting people on board to log in and create a Google account or get access to these spreadsheets. You know, it's a challenge to get people to use it, you know, and it's a change, and people don't like change.
And there's, yeah, I mean, obviously in the healthcare system, there's a lot of, confidentiality restrictions and things like that that have limited my ability to use this with anybody. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely the opportunity to, and I just also wanted to highlight that, these are modifiable, right? I imagine that, things don't often go as planned in the classroom, and when you're going off the organization path, you can still kind of target you can still change these, right? I mean, it's like
Yeah,
whatever. I mean,
yeah,
I was trying to think of like I just wrote chemistry, but you see what I mean? It's like, this is like, you could have the future dates all be planned, right? We're supposed to be in unit 4 here, whatever,
yeah,
but
and then
we
you would
didn't do
have your
that on
topics and
that
your
day.
units listed in there, you know,
Sure.
and then like that would be your pacing guide, and then maybe you would have like another few columns to the right tracking like actually where the teacher is, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So like
Sure.
the teachers could go in and actually put in where they are, and then this is where they should be, this is where they are, this is where my peer is, you know, and it's just another collaborative piece that can help maybe keep people more on task, or you know, because sometimes, you know, things don't always work out the way it's supposed to. You know how it is.
100%.
You know,
Everybody knows.
everybody, you know, you get behind, and but I mean, I do think that that can be used in the educational part. It's just a matter of manipulating the data to target what you're looking for, and that's with anything, you know.
Totally.
You're tracking exercise and PT. We're tracking data for, you know, grades and pacing and things like that. So, you know, the data can be changed. The template's there. You just have to manipulate it the way you need it,
Sure.
you know.
I hear you.
I really enjoyed listening and learning how you really manipulated the Google Sheets for your profession. I think it's nice to get that type of perspective and zone in on what you're doing, and then apply it to how, you know, the educational world can use it. Because like I said to you before, some people when you talk about sheets, they get intimidated, and they shouldn't be. You know, a Google Sheet is nothing to be intimidated about. It's just another place where you record information and share. So, and it's a shame because the students really need to be, you know, exposed to sheets and formulas and graphing, and it's an important piece of the puzzle that needs to be completed. And if
You are, yeah,
yeah, and
right on base.
if the teachers aren't doing it, then the students aren't getting that service. So it's, you know, we need to be able to use the tools effectively, and use them and not be afraid. If we make a mistake, it's no big deal. We'll just move on to the next thing. You always have to have a plan B, but we need to expose the students to all of the things that we can. And the students can actually use the spreadsheets as well. You know, you can give them this task or the template, and they can track their progress maybe in gym class. You know, how many sit-ups and how many push-ups can you do, or how fast did you run the 100 meters or 100-yard dash, whatever it is. You know, and then let them control entering their data in. You give them the numbers and you tell them and let them do it, and it's just another way of exposing them to spreadsheets too.
Yeah. I definitely feel like I have found myself playing a role of facilitator, of just building a system so that others can play around and explore and thrive within that system. Yeah, I see this as being a great avenue to do that. And yeah, I like what you said about, having the data to back it up. I mean, spreadsheets allows you to play, like, it's not just a word processor. It really allows you to pull from different cells and to find different things and to do math on cells. For me, I put all my notes into Google Sheets rather than a thing like Google Docs because it's just easier to find things. You have tabs at the bottom. You could pull up the outline of the Google Doc, but I don't want to scroll one direction just up and down. I'd love to scroll across. Like if I'm trying to find, you know, I'll actually pull up kind of the notes that I've been using, where if I just want to pull up like, okay, so somebody with knee pain, I'm trying to find, you know, let's say they have osteoarthritis, and I'm sort of structuring my notes in this way where in school we learn, all the different conditions, and we also learn that, every condition has like a pathophysiology and etiology. Where did the disease come from? What sort of is the mechanism of how that injury occurs? Some different types, some pain location. There's probably a lot of just, a lot of words on this particular sheet, but if we're looking at, how do I treat knee osteoarthritis? Like, okay, education, we talk to them about weight bearing activity. We talk about, cushioning, foot gear, weight management is a key one. We strengthen, we could stretch, different manual techniques that I could go and perform on them. So what I've done here is like, this is where I keep all of my notes. Like this is where and it's not just a Google Doc, because if it's a Google Doc, then I'm scrolling down one column, the patellofemoral pain syndrome column, and then maybe I get to tendinopathy, but they still have a mechanism of injury. This just improves my efficiency as I'm looking down at the bottom too. I have all the different body regions where I could, jump over to hip and find about maybe hip osteoarthritis. Maybe there's a different mechanism of injury there specific to the hip, depending on what we're looking at. So this is sort of how I've structured my notes, and there's no more, flipping to page 34 of the part 2 PowerPoint of, it's really, this is my created note that's going to follow me throughout the entire, because I'm always learning in clinic. I learn new things every day, and learn techniques from my mentors and role models and things like that. I read research, and so this is just a way for me to categorize everything.
Yeah, I like how you color coded, and you actually have everything consistent. So I'm assuming that when you click on the hip tab at the bottom, you still have the same headers up at the top, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I
definitely.
mean everything is consistent. It's very easy to read, and if you do a control F in the spreadsheet and type in a specific term, it's going to try to find that term in your spreadsheet. So you can, it'll search through your spreadsheet for that specific word that you typed in. So
Yeah,
control F is a nice little handy tip there to find a word in your sheet, and scroll through the results that way as well. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I've started to use sheets more and more within the past, 2 years. I've been using more of it, and I find it to be more like I'm more organized. I'm able to find the information easier, and things are just laid out in some type of consistent way for me, and I like it. I mean, and then if I wanted to, I can graph. So, everybody likes a graph because it's a visual representation um, of their information. But I find myself using sheets more and more. And it's nice because in G Suite, we use forms. And if you have a response sheet for forms, it goes into a spreadsheet. So once you're in a spreadsheet, you can sort the data, you can take, class averages, you can do grades with different add-ons in the sheet as well. So you have a lot more flexibility with manipulating the data in a spreadsheet rather than in a Google Doc. You just have to find the app that targets what your need is, you know?
yeah, I totally agree, and I think, yeah, Sheets has worked for me, and that's sort of where I direct people, but um, it doesn't always work for that specific form in a lot of people, or meaning like some people may want docs because they're only taking words,
Right,
things like that,
right,
or
yeah,
maybe it doesn't have columns and rows as laid out as some of my information.
right. Right, and like I said, it's the need and it's the comfort level, and if people aren't willing to try something new, they're going to go to what they're more comfortable with. So, but this is great. Thank you for sharing all this information. I really think like I said, your perspective of using sheets in the medical world is just another way of showing how powerful G Suite really is. And, keep doing what you're doing, keep helping people physically and technology wise, and just keep putting your work out there because it is making a difference. Slowly,
Yeah, great. Yeah,
slowly
no, that's
move
the thing is
forward. That's the whole thing, right?
exactly.
So that's
Yeah.
all we can do. And I like your templates. I can relate to them, and I can apply them in the educational world myself. So I know, um, the need and could be there if people are just willing to try it.
Yeah, so I'll have all those up. I'll make those little tweaks to the periodization sheet, and I'll make sure I put that up on the website. And yeah, I'd be happy to help whoever's uh, feeling like they can be helped by me. I mean, I try to just kind of put things out there and see who cares, and then in a few weeks, someone will get back to me on Twitter and say like not only did the thing that you kind of taught on the template, but found this new thing. Like I discovered that you can dictate, you can type things out on docs and then carry them over to sheets. Like what I love is that people tend to learn a lot from just playing around with these because they are very easy tools to start with, and then they kind of suck you in, and you kind of get lost in a little bit of a black hole. But it's a lovely place to be in. It really forces you to think outside the box, think in a very programmer type of mindset as well, which I really like.
Yeah, I agree totally. Believe me, I'm a geek, so when I find something, I'm engulfed in it. So
Sure.
it's all good. All right, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up the show. I'm going to share my screen really fast. And so if you would like to be a guest on my show, you can visit my website, thesweettalk.com, and click on the guest tab. And please fill out this form here, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. If you have something that you would like to share, a Google for Education or EDU tech tip, trick, or workflow that you want to share and help others, please be on the show and help me pay it forward. Little steps, little things can help other people and make a big difference in someone else's classroom. If you like to see the episodes, go to the episode tab and you can find this episode. You are my 61st show, James. I'm really so thankful about that.
That's awesome.
So you can see all of my shows that are listed here with the YouTube link and the show notes. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can hit the subscribe tab up at the top, subscribe to my YouTube channel, my newsletter. And I am on Podbean, Google Play Music, and Apple Podcasts, which is new. So I am available as a podcast as well. And with that said, that concludes our show. And I'm back. So until next time, have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in, guys.